Hello and welcome, everyone. Thanks to everyone who is joining. I can see that we have quite a number of people here already, so it's fantastic to have you here. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining us from all across Africa and around the world. My name is Nafisa Waziri, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's Regional Learning Exchange. And the title of our session today is Sharing Insights, Strengthening Systems, Cross-Cohort Learning on Education Data Innovation in Africa. So thank you so much for being here. The event today brings together policymakers, it brings together researchers, civil society organizations, and implementing partners from across the KIX data cohorts. And today we're going to reflect on what we are learning, what is working, and how we can collectively strengthen education data systems across the continent. So before we begin, I'm just going to give a few housekeeping notes to help us run smoothly today. So first and foremost, the session is being recorded and the recording will be shared afterwards. And second, our aspiration today is to have a very interactive conversation. So we encourage your active conversation. Please use the Q&A function throughout the event. Feel free to post comments in the chat. I can see a lot of comments already coming through, and it's really lovely to see that we have Africa represented. So thank you so much for being here again. We will begin with our opening remarks now. So it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Patrick Okwen to give our opening remarks. He is the CEO of eBase Africa, and he plays a vital role in strengthening education evidence systems in our region and in the world, actually. So we're very, very honored to have him here today. Dr. Okwen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nafisa, and it's a pleasure to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our colleagues, everyone who's joined this webinar from Africa and beyond. And it's a pleasure for me to welcome you to this opening of cross cohorts for learning and a learning session under the KIX Data Initiative. Today's theme is sharing insights and strengthening systems, and it reminds us why we are all here. And this is because education across the continent has very rich data, yet we keep struggling to use data. So how can we unlock this data so that it can help us for learning, for teaching, for policy making, and even to inform further research moving forward? This is something that is very important for learning for children in Africa, and it's at the heart of the work that most of the organizations that are here today and the partners who are funding these projects hold very dearly. So on behalf of the Unlocking Data team and all our partners, I want to thank the IDRC for their continued leadership and for creating a space where innovators, policymakers, and practitioners can learn with and from each other. Unlocking Data, which is the portion that we are bringing on board this bigger picture of initiatives with the rest of the partners, started with a simple vision, for example, to make education data work harder for policymakers, or work better for policymakers, for teachers, and ultimately for children. And over the past months, we have seen ministries, local teams begin to ask sharper questions, build stronger data pipelines, and generate insights that are not only technically sound, but genuinely relevant for decision making. And today we even have some of these policymakers who will be talking with us. But perhaps the most exciting element of this initiative is that it is not happening in isolation. Through the KIX Seeds project, we have Educate, we have CamFed, and we have our Unlocking Data partners. And we have all witnessed the same truth that innovation becomes meaningful only when it strengthens systems and empowers the people who use the data every day. And I would really want to reiterate on that aspect. Now, today's session will allow us to hear from policymakers who are translating project data into actions, whether it is in planning, in monitoring, in curriculum development, gender equity, or frontline school support. And their reflections on sustainability and institutionalization are crucial because our goal is not merely to run projects, it is to shift cultures of evidence and ensure that both evidence synthesis and evidence use are being active or are in the play in national systems. I want to invite all participants to listen with curiosity, to ask questions, and to consider that what lessons here can travel across borders and what can be scaled and what do we still need to build upon together. As unlocking data remains as unlocking data, we remain committed to strengthening ministries' capacities to generating, interpreting, and using data responsibly, ethically, and collaborative. And I am confident that the conversations today will push forward the agenda. Thank you, everyone, and I invite you to be very proactive and curious in this session. Over to you, Nafisa.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Okwen. I think you've just set the scene for us with those thoughtful reflections, and especially for grounding us in the importance of learning from one another and not working in silos. As you've said, our goal is to shift cultures of evidence synthesis and use to a place where we're ensuring that the data is informing us ethically and collaboratively. So thank you so much for that call. Um, I now have the pleasure of inviting Mr. Patrick Walugembe from IDRC. Um, Patrick and his team have been central in shaping the KIX vision and supporting our cross-country collaboration. So thank you, Mr. Walugembe. You are welcome to the floor.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, good morning for those who are still in the morning, and good evening, everyone, colleagues and partners. So I am honored to welcome you to this cross-cohort learning webinar on behalf of the International Development Research Center, IDRC, and of course on behalf of the GPE KIX team some of whom I know are participating as well here. This is really what KIX is about. This is what GPE KIX is about, knowledge and innovation exchange. So thank you so much to the organizers for creating this space and for giving momentum to the discussions that are ongoing around education data systems and data use within, and especially even amongst us, creating that momentum within the team. So we have, there's a lot of things that are going on in terms of exchange of knowledge and innovation right now as I speak. This week we have the GPE KIX Continental Symposium that is taking place in Dakar, in Senegal. And then we also, next week, we have a GPE KIX Global Symposium. And I encourage all of you to attend that. But now back to this. So as you all know, we are working on a critical question. I know one that we've discussed extensively with colleagues. We know that the bigger question on how can education data drive real change for learners across the region, across our region, even within our countries, even communities. So the GPE KIX synthesis report, for those that have had a chance to look at it, in that report, it was made very, very clear that data is powerful only when it is used. And I think in the different discussions we've had with some of you, this is something that we've really emphasized quite extensively across our continent. Countries have invested a lot in the MS systems, the platforms, the learning assessments, dashboards to facilitate use. But the real impact comes from when those tools inform policy decisions, when they inform resource allocation and classroom practice. In that report, we identify three major lessons. Number one is in integration matters. So basically linking administrative data with learning outcomes and household surveys gives us a full picture of equity and inclusion, and I know some of you are working on that already. And then capacity-driven sustainability, so data literacy. So we're speaking about this as well from the ministries, to the school leaders. If you're able to turn information into action, then that's a good thing that you're looking out for. Then scaling requires systems. Innovation must be move beyond pilots into national policies, into budgets, into standards. So I speak to you both as GPE KIX colleagues, but also speak to a group of people that I know are passionate about the centrality of data in the current discourse. So today's session will showcase some of the lessons we are learning from this cohort, from real-time dashboards to community-driven data approaches, and explore how governments can sustain and scale what works. I think this is about building resilient systems, education systems that adapt and endure. And as we begin, as we go into the discussions, I invite you to think boldly. How do we make data the language of opportunity for every child? How do we turn our innovations into policies that last? Of course, the answers lie somewhere between collaboration, somewhere between evidence and commitment, and creating these kinds of platforms that give us a bandwidth to strengthen our work around this objective. And the very principles those are the very principles that define our GPE KIX. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for the organizers, and looking forward for great discussions. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Malugembe. Thank you for highlighting the value of long-term investments in data systems and evidence use, and for also dutifully synthesizing the recommendations coming out of the report. I think it sets an excellent foundation for today's conversation. So thank you so much. Okay, now we are going to move into the heart of today's event. We're going to have a regional spotlight session where we can focus on perspectives from East, Central, Southern, and West Africa. And the session today is really quite unique. In many regional events, we hear organizations speak about their own work. But today we're doing things a little bit differently. We have invited our partners. We have policymakers here, we have academics, and we have implementing organizations. And we've invited them to join us and to speak directly about the impact, the value, and the lessons emerging from the initiatives we are collaborating with on across the continent. And this approach is very intentional. It reflects something that we consider essential to meaningful and sustainable change, and that is that evidence must be owned and championed by the people and by the institutions who use it. I think I'm echoing what our opening remarks have also highlighted. And for us, by giving the floor to our national partners, we are not only showcasing results, but we're also demonstrating the local ownership of data and evidence, the credibility and relevance of these innovations, and critically, the commitment of governments, of partners, and practitioners to sustaining the work long after project cycles end. So the panel you're about to hear from reflects a fuller ecosystem that's required for strong education data systems, and their insights are very much rooted in lived experiences. It provides a powerful lens for us to move from innovation to implementation and then ultimately to institutionalization. So just to set the scene a little bit, each of our speakers will have 5 minutes to respond to two broad themes. Firstly, on their experience with data use and implementation, and then talking about scaling and sustainability. So I will now invite our panel. Our first speaker represents the Unlocking Data Initiative, which is all about working with education stakeholders at the national and subnational level to increase the use and users of data. This initiative is currently being implemented in Cameroon, in Kenya, and in Malawi. Today, we have Mr. Bauket George joining us from Cameroon. He oversees the statistics and education datasets as part of the Regional Delegation of Basic Education for the Northwest region of Cameroon. Mr. George, you are very welcome. Please, could you kick us off by sharing your experience working with the Unlocking Data Initiative? And could you tell us what elements have been most valuable in strengthening data use in your context?
Yeah, Madam, good morning. That is Mr. Bauket George, Chief of Service Statistics, Regional Delegation Basic Education, Northwest Region from Cameroon. Yeah, I have the pleasure to join you so that we can share ideas on how we can log in data, and after logging in the data, we can use it and analyze it and in such a way that policymakers can use the data. I've been working in this service for the past 18 years, and I have seen there are a lot of difficulties first in logging in the data. The difficulties range as from such the society where we have to pick the data from has little or no knowledge about the importance of data. So with us, we think the first thing is to sensitize the society, educate them on the importance of the data so that it will facilitate us to get equitable data and at the moment we want, so that we can analyze and give it to the policymakers to take good care of, to take good policies on how they can run the country. In Cameroon, we have been working with some organizations like CH, IMIS, which are being sponsored by foreign donors. Really, if we are joining this particular organization, they have come to us at the regional delegation and we held our first meeting to find out the difficulties we've been getting to get the real data from the field, what we can do to possibly get the data in time, analyze and forward it to policy makers. There are a lot of difficulties outlined, and following what we did last meeting, they have been outlined and streamlined out to follow them step after step so that by the end, we can see whether we'll get to the field and collect the real data so that policymakers can take good decisions.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. George, for sharing those insights. You've talked about a lot of the challenges that you face and your priorities as far as sensitizing and collecting equitable data.
Madam Nafisa, pardon, a little bit, pardon, not hearing well. Speak with a low voice. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay, sorry. Am I more audible now? Can everyone hear me?
I'm
I
okay.
can
Go on.
hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, I'll try to be a bit more audible. So just a big thank you to Mr. George for sharing the insights and for highlighting some of the priorities for strengthening data collection cultures and having equitable data sets. So now we are going to invite Educate. Educate is a social enterprise that works with government and schools to make education in Africa more relevant to today's job market. In Rwanda, they are working with the National Examination and School Inspection Authority to support the development of Rwanda's comprehensive assessment management information system. a mouthful, CAMIS. And this system is going to track literacy and numeracy outcomes using real-time data. So we are very pleased to welcome Dr. Bahati Bernard. He is the Director General of NESA, the National Examination and School Inspection Authority. And Dr. Bahati, thank you so much for being here. While sharing your experience working with Educate, please could you also offer us some perspectives on what is needed to sustain and scale initiatives such as this within national systems?
Yeah, thank you very much, Basil, to introduce me. As she said, I'm Bernard Bahati. I lead an institution here in Rwanda called NESA. NESA is the National Examination and School Inspection Authority. So when you talk about examinations, probably the name of the institution was abusively set as such, but NESA oversees all assessment practices in basic education. So the use of data, unlocking data, and thank you for my colleague from Cameroon who has just intervened. The main key factor which can even lead all other interventional things is to have the decision makers, policymakers that understand the role of data, the role of making sense of data to make sure that the decisions that are taken, they are driven by insight and other conclusions from the data analysis. This is the key. I'm saying this because I've been leading this institution for more than 4 years. I had a chance to work with different ministers and the Minister of Education here in Rwanda. So they don't all sense the role of using data at the same level. Some of them, they really understand it. They, for example, they are pushing you as an institution in charge of assessment practices. What data tell us in terms of how the students are performing? Are they learning as expected? So the key issue here is that if policymakers, if leaders have this urge of using data, others are just implementation strategies and practices you can work on. But the key issue here is to make sure that ministers and the other policymakers, they understand that this is the role of data in all what they are doing. So coming back to our experience with working with Educate, yeah, it started, I think, 3 years ago, whereby when NESA is a relatively new institution, as I said, it's a 4-year and some month old institution. We were mandated to try to see how assessment can be revisited, assessment practices and reformed, but making sure that we put emphasis on using assessment data to inform a decision-making in education sector. So this was like a challenge because first of all, there was a policy, as I was saying, there was a policy that was actually requesting some institutions that were overseeing assessment practices in education in Rwanda. A policy had been around for, I think, 5 years, requesting to make sure that we use assessment data to inform decision making. But as I said before, the policymakers that were at the Ministry of Education before, they were not really understanding the importance of doing that and make sure that it is implemented. So that's when we started to work on that, making sure that assessment data, they are first of all collected, analyzed, but again, using the analysis results to inform decision making. So we've been working with Educate, of course, together with other partners to make sure that we realize this. We put in place what we call the Comprehensive Management Information System. It's a system through which we gather our assessment data, school-based assessment from schools, and we make sure that we look at them on real-time basis and use the different insights, different dashboard to make sure that we intervene as early as possible to make sure that we support learners that are lagging behind. So most importantly, with Educate, when we started developing this system, the Comprehensive Assessment Management Information System, it's a huge system, you can imagine, a system through which you gather data from pre-primary until secondary school. It's huge. So we were having difficulties and challenges to retrieve data, to access to data, and then Educate through KIX, they come up with AI-based solutions to make sure that we get access to data easily instead of just continuing experiencing some difficulties. So with the dashboard that were introduced, now at national level, at district level, provincial level, go until at the sector level. So different decision makers, different education officials, they can follow how the students are doing, how they are learning. It really helped a lot in terms of making sure the other assessment management information system is really efficient in terms of providing timely data and make sure that the analysis is not delayed. By probably completing my intervention, I would like to come back to what I said before. So having data is one thing. Analyzing them, it's another thing. But having the practitioners, when I talk about practitioners, and the first level is school level, trying to make sense of the result of the analysis and make sure that they implement what you are suggesting. This is where the problem is. We have to make sure that even if you have analyzed data, you have to provide actionable recommendations that are really understandable to the practitioners and most importantly at the school level, because each and every change has to start at school level. Otherwise, at NESA level, ministry level, we can suggest what should be done, but if it is not implemented at school level, we would have invested efforts that are not leading to really concrete outcome. So that's what I can say. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bahati. And I think it was really insightful hearing you share some of the practicalities around operationalizing systems and ensuring that the data is accessible, and then creating efficiencies across the system for impact. Not just about having data, but about being able to make sense of it and providing actionable recommendations at the end that can improve outcomes. That's what it takes to sustain and to scale for impact. So thank you so much for that. I will now invite our next partner. We have KIX Seeds, KIX Strengthening and Enhancing Education Data System, KIX Seeds. KIX Seeds is developing and scaling digital solutions for the education sector and building the capacity of local education actors in subnational administrative units of Uganda, Burkina Faso, and Senegal. So today we have joining us from Uganda. We will get perspectives from an implementing partner, Ms. Monica Amuha. She is the team lead for the DHIS2 for education project at the Health Information Systems Program. Thank you for being here, Ms. Amuha. You're in a unique position in a way because your work straddles both education and health data systems. So can you share with us your practical experience and perhaps also reflect on how project-generated data or insights has played a role or influenced a decision or a practice?
Yeah, thank you very much, Nafisa, for the introduction and that very great question. So, like you have clearly highlighted, I've been working both in health and education, supporting these data systems. And the software that we are really managing or supporting and implementing is the DHIS2 software that has been used in the health sector for the last 30 years. So with the KIX project, we came in together with another GPE KIX project. We came in to see how can DHIS2 be repurposed as a digital platform in the education sector. So there's been like great learning across the health and education sector because they are quite different, but they also have commonalities, and these have really been areas of synergy and really seeing how can we collaborate between health and education for both better education and health outcomes, and really what good practices can we maybe pick from the health sector where DHIS2 has been implemented and transition them to the education sector. So it has been both a very good learning experience. But also to move to your other point of reflection where you're asking how this data, the data that is generated, how it has played a role in influencing decision making. And this is especially like health related data that is collected in the education space. So using education data that we are collecting, and we are really focusing at the subnational level. And I think the previous panelists have talked about it. How can we strengthen, data use at subnational level, especially at district, and we are with KIX, we are going down to school level. So you find that most of the data that has been coming in has been coming from the school down up to the central level and only utilized at that level. But with this system that is decentralized and is available and can be accessed at the subnational level, we've been able to get, like, for example, enrollment numbers that have informed health intervention programs in schools. We all know that, we need a healthy child for better education outcomes. So vaccination campaigns, for example, measles, rubella, polio vaccination campaigns, all these need enrollment numbers, or how many learners are in school within a specific age that need to be vaccinated. So we've been able to generate this data, and schools and districts have really been able to utilize this data for such health programs. Then we also have school feeding initiatives, which are also very relevant. Nutrition is very vital for good education outcomes. And the system has really enabled, capturing this data with support from our other partners to see how we can improve school feeding programs in schools that really are not feeding their learners. Then the other interesting bit has been about teenage pregnancies, because in that system right now, we are collecting mothers who are pregnant or who gave birth, teenage mothers. And these programs, this data has really informed return of programs that, support and target these learners and ensure they return and they are retained at school. So it has really been very essential. And lastly, on the during COVID-19, we all knew what it did, and it closed most of the schools. But with the flexibility of DHIS2, we are able to configure a school-based surveillance system, and which was able to track and report COVID-related cases in schools and also link them to care. And this system has now been expanded to see how can we now continuously monitor diseases of public health concern in schools. In Uganda, we had outbreak of Ebola, measles, malaria outbreak. So in schools, and this really disrupts student learning. So with the flexibility of the system, we've really been able to go beyond that and really capture these schools. And just briefly to really reflect on scaling of these data innovations. And it goes back to building a strong ecosystem that really sustains the software. Beyond the platform, can we build communities of practice, research or training collaborations, and also capacity within in-country to sustain the system, to support the users. And this capacity needs to be ongoing. But we also need to look at how do we scale consumption, because yes, it's one thing to have the system, but we need to scale use of the system and also usefulness of the system. And I think Patrick talked about interoperability, because as we really talk about interoperability and integrate various data sets, then we have a more comprehensive data to utilize for decision making. And lastly, we also need to scale production of the system. I've mentioned the example of school-based surveillance, which was just an innovation on top of what we are doing. But so many innovations can be built on the system so that, education can be faced with different exogenous shocks, and we need to build systems that are really resilient to these shocks so that we continue learning. So building new innovations on top of existing platforms, I think it's something that really can sustain and scale these data innovations. So thank you very much. I will stop here.
Yes, thank you so much, Ms. Amuha. It's really insightful hearing about how learning and sharing data across sectors can actually have a really, really big impact. And it highlights how these issues don't exist in silos, how evidence can help us understand, evidence from one sector can help us understand what we're observing in another sector. So thank you for that. I also heard some recurring themes like capacity building, which was also mentioned by Dr. Bahati and Mr. George. So thank you very much for that perspective. I will now swiftly move on to our next speaker. We have next we have the Campaign for Female Education, CAMFED, Tanzania. And they are working with the government on a data systems managing research project for schools to support them to effectively analyze data, to further reduce school dropouts, and to encourage the re-enrollment of marginalized girls in Tanzania. And they do this by strengthening national and subnational data systems as well. So joining us from the Tanzanian Ministry of Education.
Nafisa?
Yes,
I'm sorry.
yes, I can hear you.
You speak in low voice. My device today
Oh,
is not
okay.
working properly. Monica, I
Oh,
heard you have very, very nice.
okay, I'm sorry. Is this any
Yeah,
better?
now I can hear from you.
Okay, okay. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Mr. Robert Misigwa. He is the Secondary Education Coordinator, and he's part of the Regional Local Government Administration as well. Mr. Misigwa, thank you so much for being here. Could you speak to us about your experience with this initiative and how your team is working to ensure that these practices are sustained and institutionalized well beyond the life cycle of the project?
Thank you, Tim. Repeat again to introduce myself. I'm Robert Sigwa from Tanzania. I would like first to thank my government for giving me a new position in government to be a personal assistant of Minister of PIORAG, Prime Minister's office, from 21st of last month. So I'm holding another position for these 3 weeks and go on. Yeah, of course, as we know that data in education is vital and it informs several decisions in the daily practices. When we integrate different stakeholders to support on how we can process data, disseminate data to others, we have another idea on how this can be sustainable beyond all these projects. First of all, we have made a program of training teachers who are in the class, who are first to provide the initial data from the classrooms, from the parents, from the students, integrate. And we put a system integrating with other communication companies like Vodacom, Airtel, and other companies we provide the internet, who in meanwhile, we are going to give free internet to all schools because we have a great dialogue between government and these companies, especially in education, in education sector. But sustainability of this depends on how we can control, especially infrastructures that are mostly can be distracted in a using process. So far, using teachers and the number of teachers are a lot of them. So they have been insisted and have been trained on how they own the importance first. That this is importance and how they can deliver the data timely and how can gather from other parts. It is an agenda, government agenda, from political figures and even in the highlights, I can say, technical part. When you go to the field, this is a national agenda. From the president, you can see that you can have a president go of all other problems that are prevalent, but he announces that this one should be 1, 2, 3. Regional commissioners, district commissioners, when you come to the PSs of all ministries, when they go, they assist about data. And when we are in Kigali last time, I told you that the president has ordered all entities to integrate the systems into to have one system with different windows to operate. So to simplify, to encourage the users to be friendly to the users. And the process is going on. Now you can say did they even educate team, Tanzania educate. We are processing now, the technical parts are in a field looking on how they can integrate their support directly to the system. Comfort the same, region the same, and during the process, initial process, we invite all them. We sit together. What they need, what kind of data they need from the system, and they become it available. Last time in Rwanda, I told you that sometimes it can be some restrictions, but wherever the data is confirmed, is free. Even you, an officer, can access our data, use it. Whatever is verified that is correct data, then we give it free. So it encourages a lot of stakeholders to support on it, but sustainability depends on the government and the culture of the people themselves within the country who are a main user to those data. Yes, I will elaborate a little bit. If you can ask something for my elaboration, I'm here. I submit. Though I want to declare on things, I'll have to leave the meeting before 4 p.m. because I'll go to some duties. I decided to spare this time a little bit to say something, but I have another activity, official activity.
Yes, thank you so much for
Thank you.
being here. Thank you so much, Mr. Musigwa, for your response and also for being here, given the many competing demands for our time. Just congratulations on your new role. And I think I really heard you when you said you emphasized the importance of having open data, and when you said I could even look at your data now, that's one of the bottlenecks that a lot of us face across our projects. So it's really good to hear that the work in Tanzania is moving forward from just collating the data, but taking steps to making it accessible to everyone for utilization. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
I will now invite our last speaker, who comes from the Unlocking Data Initiative. And now we're very, very happy to welcome a voice from academia and research. So we have Professor Hilda Omae. She is the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Administration, Finance, and Planning at Meru University in Kenya. She brings a wealth of experience in educational leadership, and she also served as the Dean of the School of Education. Professor Omae, thank you for being here. We would be very happy to hear about your reflection regarding your collaboration with the Unlocking Data Initiative. And if you could share with us some of the ways that the evidence ecosystem has been and can continue to be supported.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Nafisa, for that introduction. Good morning, afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. And thanks again for this particular meeting. So, as you've heard, I'm Professor Hilda Mai from Mary University. My training and work throughout has actually been in education. I'm a trained teacher. I have been in academia for about 2 decades now. So it's really just within the school system, so to speak, education, whether at the basic level or at higher education. Now, with regard to working with the Unlocking Data Initiative, and especially with the Academy for that takes care of graduate associates or graduate students, there's a lot that has happened, and there's a lot that I think is going to be happening. Just to give some little background on that, with the graduate students now, they are involved with this particular project, and many of them are having this aha moment of these decisions are coming from somewhere. A lot of times you find in our environments, especially here in Africa, that there will be political pronouncements, which then end up being implemented in the school system. So someone will decide we are changing this textbook, or someone will decide we are having free primary education, or someone, whatever it is they will decide, it's laptops for all kids. Now, has anybody gone and found out whether we are able to support those laptops? Possibly not. But then that pronouncement is made. So with time, we grow up knowing, yes, everybody's going to have a laptop, but we don't have the basis for such a decision. So this particular project is especially useful for the young researchers or even practitioners in the school system to realize that it is important for us to make decisions based on data. And this data is available somewhere. So that is the other challenge now that they're coming face to face with, that there is a lot of research that we are doing. As academics, as students, as practitioners, policymakers, we are doing a lot of studies, but everybody is keeping their data. So you will find there's a lot of replication, and I don't even know if you have done it. So they're coming face to face with that as well. The realities of the world of research and the realities of data. So for this particular project especially, I am quite delighted that the graduate students are awakening to the realities of life after education, the actual real world experiences of these are the decisions that we are going to be expected to make. These are some of the challenges, but there is a way out. They are learning useful skills, better academic writing, the publications, the things that would be involved for graduate students. But also, more importantly, there is mentorship, that they have an opportunity now to listen and get feedback from not just their immediate supervisors, but from a group of their peers, but also a group of experienced researchers. They're having to understand the concept of using their networks, accessing other people's networks, and creating their own communities of learning. And that way, then education for them doesn't become an end in itself, but something that they're going to be pursuing. So it is really a great initiative that they're involved in. And of course, with time, I hope that it's going to expand a lot more and just develop greater effects, because at the local level, at the national level, we need these kinds of collaborations where then you realize there is no point of looking for this data. Somebody already has it. I just need to use it in order to make a good decision about a particular issue. All right, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Professor Mai. It's such a powerful contribution, because this is looking at the longevity and having graduate students who are working based on the realities. And I think you used the word the messiness of the data pipeline, equipping them to be able to navigate that, and not just to be data collectors, but to be critically thinking, to be able to translate that into something that is meaningful and that can inform and educate is really very important. The mentorship aspect as well really stands out. So thank you so much for that contribution and for all the work that you are doing. Okay, so a big sincere thank you to all of our speakers. Part of the design of the session today was to make sure we have sufficient time to also engage with all the participants in the session. And I can see that there are lots of questions which have been coming in through the Q&A. So thank you so much for those. Some have been answered, but we have a few more that are still there, and they are for our panelists. So just to do a very quick recap, that this cross-country panel really does reflect the richness and the diversity of approaches across the continent. We have people working on strengthening education management information systems. We have people who are working on embedding data practices within school level teacher training at the local governance level, as well as with the administrative structures. And what really stands out is a shared commitment to moving from data collection to data use, and even beyond data use, having system level change. So thank you for those reflections. I'm now going to open the space for your questions and for your reflections from the audience. I encourage you to please continue adding more of your questions in the chat, please. So I will pick a question which has come from Ngem Bede Young, and he thanks our speakers. There's a particular interest in our colleagues from Cameroon and Uganda, and our participant is expressing some concern to know how follow-up is done on the data that is disseminated. What mechanisms are put in place to be sure that the recommendations are implemented? So I will open the floor first to Mr. George and then to Monica.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Madam, for calling me as the first speaker to talk on. I would recapitulate again your question. You want me to expatiate on how the data we collect and analyze and send ahead is utilized, or how the policymakers use the data?
Yes, thank you for asking for the clarification. So this question is moving further down the pipeline of data production and looking at how the data has been used as an evidence base to inform a policy. So our participants want to understand what the mechanisms are that have been put in place to make sure the recommendations coming out of the evidence are being implemented.
Okay, yeah, we're working with CH, IMIS, and the International Institute of Statistics. When we get the raw data from the field, right from the classroom, we process it. It comes to the subdivision, from the subdivision, division, from the division to the regional delegation. The regional delegation now will process it, send it down to the national level. At the national level, there are statistics specialists who sit down, get the raw data, and again analyze it. When they analyze, we now, from the regions, go down and sit down national conference for proposals and to see solutions, to sort out solutions on difficulties on how we collected. We went out for the data collections and had problems. So now when these proposals are met, they are again tabled for the last national level, at the last national level for validation. And when we go for validation, We now pass them to the ministers, who then go ahead and see what they can do. But then, on all, those of us who are from the grassroots, we have actors who collect data, and these data are collected from people who don't even know which indicator will give them which data. That is why we, the actors from the grassroots level, are still saying that they need a lot of capacity building to know that this indicator will give us this data, from this indicator we'll get this data, so that we have this information, and from that we will solve a problem that is generating from that particular indicator. Then now, there is another problem again we face with these proposals we make. You know, the regimes of countries vary. Politically, our proposals may for example, those of us from the Anglophone zone and the Francophone zone, the proposals may be put forward to people who understand, who are going to sit down to go over those proposals, are only from a particular region, and they might not understand the language in which those of us from the Anglophone zone have placed our problem. So that there's that issue of language barrier, political suppression, and so on the proposals from the data collectors for solution implementation. Next point again. Your next point was?
Oh, thank you, Mr. George. I think you have answered the question. So now we can invite Ms. Amuha's reflections from the experience in Uganda. Thank you, Monica. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. I'm having internet challenges. Yes, thank you very much for the question. And in Uganda, really, what we have done about translating policy into practice of it being implemented. We had a case in point where one of our key research findings, because we are researching on the DHIS2 for education, how it can really be used as an education management information system. So when we went down to the subnational level, we found that unlike in the health sector, the education system or structure lacks education statisticians at the subnational level. So you find that the district education managers who are really, administrative and have so many other roles that they are doing do not have time to really, dig deep into the data, follow up non-reporting schools and all that. And so that limited their use of data. So one of our key recommendations to the ministry was really to put, should I say, district statisticians or data officers at the district education office to really support the district education office in, capturing this data, analyzing it, and also now synthesizing it to use it for decision making. So the ministry has taken up that recommendation, and right now they've hired 50 statisticians. Of course, they are not sufficient for the 170 districts that we have in Uganda, but at least it's kind of like a step in the right direction. But then we also saw like where the districts we are implementing in, some of them have gone ahead to identify and using their own resources, data officers, they could be volunteers or within their small budgets. So really understanding the relevance of data and going ahead really to have these data officers in place, I think has also been something that we have noted as a positive influence of that project. And also in terms of really disseminating data, of course, with the DHIS2, the data is visible across all the different levels from national, district to school level. So we've designed like dashboards, which dashboards were really co-created with the district users, the school users, to identify their key priority indicators. And so with this, they have the data available on their dashboards in form of school report cards at the school level. So they are able to interact and interrogate this data and use it for decision making, either at district or school level. Yeah, that's what I can add. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for those very practical examples. Thank you for sharing. I hope this answers your question, Ngembe Deyong. The next question, and please keep them coming. I see them in the chat, comes from Martin Wanjala. And I think this question can be answered from multiple perspectives. So I'm going to invite Professor Hilda and Dr. Bahati. The question is interested in how evidence can take the next step to inform practice. So Martin is asking, well, Martin first is appreciating the insights on data generation, collection, and analysis. He is curious about how best we can improve the packaging and communication of evidence to policymakers. So we have a policymaker here, and we also have someone who works in generating evidence and data, and who is experienced with trying to get to that next step of having an impact. So I'll first invite Dr. Bahati, if he's able to join. Okay, I think maybe our connection has been interrupted. So I'll invite you, Professor Omai, to open the floor, please.
Right. Okay, so thank you, and thanks for that insightful question. So how then do we package this for policymakers? I think one of the things that we have to be conscious about and agree on is that numbers are numbers and numbers, and numbers do not tell the story. So we have to tell the story around the numbers. And that is the responsibility of the statistician, of the researcher, of the graduate student, like in our case, to package it or to put it in a manner that is accessible. Because communication is important. Numbers are a form of language. So when we are talking about data, be it the qualitative data that we're going to collect or the quantitative data that we have, it needs to be synthesized. So that is part of the reason that for this program, it's really useful, even for students to understand how do we analyze this in a way that then it tells the story. That when we talk about 4 out of 10 children of a particular age group cannot read, then what?
Yeah.
What does that mean? So the meaning behind that is what now we need to unpack and help the policymaker use in order to make policies. That then we are saying, could it be that we don't have teachers? Is it that we do not have books? Is it that we do not have the right infrastructure? Is it our curriculum that is wrong? When we are talking about these 4 kids, is it important for these 4 kids to learn? You know, that begins the conversation. Once we are able to answer that, then we put it in a language then that we help the policymaker to say, because we do not have the proper infrastructure in schools, or because we have not empowered the parents, that is why these kids are not coming to school, or we are using a language that these kids cannot identify with. We probably need to start with Kiswahili or mother tongue or English, whatever that might be. Then now at the government level or at whatever level that might be, it could even be at the local institutional level. The policymaker is able to say, now I am going to have this particular group to inform them on this. I'm going to provide this. Then the next time we're going to talk about only one child who cannot read. And then we will find out why that one child cannot read. So Wanjala, mine is to say that whenever we have this data, it is good that we have it, but it is more important that we know how to analyze and synthesize that data. We get information out of it that then speaks to the issue or to the question that we are plagued with. Thank you, Nafisa. I hope that helps in clarifying.
Yes, yes, it really does. Thank you so much, Professor Omai, for sharing your experience and some of the strategies and ways that you've approached making sure your evidence doesn't just hit a dead end, that it actually is impactful and informs the people who can actually make a difference. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to pick one more question from the chat, and this is from Hassan Migane. And his question is, I think, most appropriate or was most relevant, I think, in the Cameroonian situation, where the education systems are really challenged by conflict as well. And you are having competing demands and priorities. This question is asking about how you create a budget to engage in the data collection process and cleaning and analysis, and what kind of support is needed in those specific contexts to ensure that there is good evidence that can be used to improve and alleviate and mitigate some of the issues that you face.
Thank you. You're welcome. Once more, from the perspective of the budget is created, is allocated nationally and redistributed. You know, in Cameroon now, we're still using the hardware that is collecting data on paper. It is just within this period that CH is introducing, we're trying to go to the field now to train on how data could be collected using our modern tools. But the people are not yet at the level of collecting data with the modern tools. So the data, the budget is nationally distributed gradually, but as it is distributed gradually to the different regions and the different divisions, the printing of the questionnaires that we use in collecting data, they print, and we, the regional collaborators, we go and collect, we come and distribute. Then we move around, go to the subdivisions, work with the head teachers of the schools, collect the data. We have seminars. We go, first of all, meet them, have seminars with them, educate them on how they can fill the questionnaires, and we really be there for 1 or 2 days, collect the data, and then leave it with the inspectors. The inspectors now go through, send to us. We sit down again and scrutinize and then validate the questionnaires. When we validate the questionnaires, we now carry and go to the national level where there is a team that sits down to key the data. And then they call the regional collaborators, they come and sit down and we start working again on the data. Then the difficulties we face is that there are some red zones. There are green zones, like the crisis-stricken regions, Northwest and Southwest. It is very difficult to get to the red zones to collect data. Just for the questionnaires to get there, it is not easy. At times, we have to invite those head teachers. They move through shortcuts and so on to come for them to sit down in a special place. You hide them before you can even get information from them. Only a few divisional headquarters and, for example, in Southwest, like Boya Central, Limbe Central, in Northwest, like Mezam Central, Nkambe Central, the green zones that we can really openly, the regional collaborators can really openly go there, educate the head teachers, meet with them, the inspectors and so on, and we collect the data. So there are a lot of difficulties that we face as of now to really get data from the field. At times, we don't even meet up with the deadline. The deadline overlaps when you have not yet, the questionnaires have not yet even gotten to some subdivisions, or when some schools, they had collected the questionnaires and filled, and they cannot access you to give you back the question. So you keep working gradually, trying. You either contact them by phone if they have network and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of challenges in these crisis-stricken regions that to get the data. But we're hoping that with a lot of intervention from the government, the crisis might be over and it will flow. Then we are too struggling that if the crises are over, we now go down to the field, capacity building for the head teachers, from the head teachers to the inspectors, then to the division and to the region, so that at the national level, we can be proud that we are transferring the real data from the real indicators from the region to the national level, so that the real decisions be taken on problems faced in the suburbs. But for the budget is always redistributed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. George, for shedding light on some of the practicalities of this. And also, it was good to hear about the delineation between areas where the crisis is more protracted versus where it's ongoing, and some of the challenges around each of those situations. So thank you very much. So I'm going to there's still many questions, and thank you so much, everyone, for keeping them coming. I'm going to pick a question from Yona Mdeme. And I think this question would be, I think Dr. Bahati is in a good position to respond to this, given the different data sets that Educate has been working and supporting NESA with. So the question is, in one way, we may have a lot of research findings, but what can we do to make sure that these available data are used to inform classroom practices, policymakers at all levels? And how do we reduce a fragmented situation? I think from what I've learned about the work being done on CAMIS, this might be a question that you would be able to shed some insights on, Dr. Bahati.
Nafisa, Dr. Bahati has dropped off.
Oh, okay. Apologies. I thought I saw him join back in, so I was happy and excited, thinking he was able to return.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
But
Thank you for returning, Dr. Bahati. I appreciate it. It's a very, very busy day.
I was probably saying that I have to leave because I have another meeting to attend, but let me probably try to answer whether I captured well the question. It's really tricky. It's tricky to make sure that based on probably one case, let's say we currently, as I said, thanks to KIX and other DPs, we are now able to consistently collect assessment data. When I'm talking about assessment data, they are school-based assessment and end-of-unit assessment, end-of-term assessment. We look to them how, for example, now they're focusing on foundational learning, and now in Rwanda, I think even in other countries, because you are trying to deal with, I think the learning poverty, whereby you can find a 10-year-old kid who is not even able to read a passage of a given text in his mother language. So it's an initiative we launched recently. We are trying to make sure that we strengthen the lower levels of education, pre-primary and lower primary, because we believe that if the kid is not able to do well at that level, already it's not easy to catch up in upper levels. So what we did with, of course, KIX, with the different dashboard data showing how kids are performing. For educational data, the immediate actions are a little bit tough to implement. For example, you you look at how kids are performing in numeracy in P1, P2, and P3, you realize that in general, the kids are not doing well. So there might be some of the factors behind that observation that go beyond the school level. Let's say it's a classroom size. You can have, for example, some of teachers that are not qualified, or even in some instances, here we have a case of double, single shift. So yes, there are some aspect of the insight from the data that can be acted upon immediately at school level. But sometimes when you deeply analyze what comes up out from the data you analyze, they require some other action that go beyond the school level. So at school level, probably when it's in a sector, when you find everything is okay, the class size is okay, the teacher is qualified, but why kids are struggling, that's probably when you can engage the teachers that are concerned to make sure whether they can change their teaching and learning strategies, to see how they can support learners in a more enhanced way. But when you look at probably the data, the insight from the analysis we do, the decisions or the actions that need to be taken, they go beyond school level. And sometimes they can take time because some of them, they involve funds and the other funding and some other factors in decision making. So that's what I can say. Yeah, in some instances, yes, you can see that the data are pointing to some of the things that can be acted upon, improved, that at a school level, but based on my experience, some of the things that need to be worked on, they are beyond the school level. They are at national level or some district level. Or that's how we, let me give you an example, based a concrete example. Thanks to what I said, the journey we started of not just assessing for the sake of assessing, but going beyond the assessment results and make sense of them. In 2023, if I'm not mistaken, after looking at lower primary performance in numeracy and literacy, and looking at how the promotion repetition was, we realized that we had a big number of kids who repeat. If I say repetition here, probably some people who are attending this call may not grasp it well, because in some countries, the repetition policy does not apply. So at that time, we realized that we are having a big number of lower primary kids who are repeating. So, and then it prompted us to put in place some promotion and repetition policies, because that was not harmonized across all schools. Some schools were allowing kids who at least score 60% in all subjects to be promoted. Others were using 50%. So we took a decision to make sure that the promotion and repetition policy is harmonized, to make sure that we reduce the number of students who are repeating. But again, not only that, it prompted to revisit the curriculum in lower primary. Some teachers had been saying it is heavy, and now even this school year, we started implementing the new curriculum at lower primary level. So that's a concrete example on how assessment data can be used to inform some of the policies, but again, some of the reforms, and take some of the policy decisions probably that were not allowed. To conclude, yes, at school level, in some instances possible, but based on my experience, some of the factors, some of the actions, they go beyond the school level. Thank you very much.
Yes,
And
thank you
allow
so
me,
much.
please, allow me please to leave
Of
another
course,
10
of
minutes.
course, of
Yeah.
course, of course. Thank you so much, Dr. Bahati, for that example. But I think it also it shows there's a level of nuance to Dr. Bahati's answer, which is that there's an understanding that there are levels to addressing these challenges, and then there are also timeframes. And that understanding is what helps to inform the policy at the end of the day. So I appreciate the example that was provided and the level of detail as well. So thank you so much. I will just take one more question, and really appreciating our participants because I can see there are lots coming through and some of them are being responded to in text. I will take a question from Hikmatu Haruna, who is concerned about how we can recognize the correct data for decision making. And this is based on a wider problem that we have in society now of just being overwhelmed with a lot of data and not being able to know the quality of the data. And also, I guess the step beyond that, identifying what types of data sets are important for us for decision making. And I'll invite, I'll open the floor actually to whoever would like to take that question, since this is the last one from our panelists. So I'll just repeat the question one more time in case it wasn't so clear. Hikmatu Haruna is concerned about how we can recognize the correct data that we would need for decision making, especially considering how the internet is flooded with so many different types of data sets. I find this question very, very relatable, to be honest. So Hikmatu is trying to get some insights on how we can identify the ones that are correct and that can inform our decision making. Yes, please go ahead, Monica.
Yeah, thank you, Hikmatu, and thank you, Nafisa. Let me just take the first shot. It's quite really interesting because without, garbage in, garbage out. So if the quality is not good, then it won't really be relevant for decision making. And actually, it's quite interesting that this week me and my colleagues were also online. We are attending a data quality academy. So like I had earlier said, capacity building is really one of the key things like the DHIS2 for Education project emphasizes. And one of the things we are looking at is really how do we identify, the quality issues within our data. And so yes, I think as data users, some of us get so comfortable with our data. We know, the ranges and what. So it's very good to see, to kind of like put this data out there on a dashboard and see what are the trends in my data and what are the outliers, what are those things that really I need to look out for. And if there are any outliers, then can I now zoom in to see which facilities are reporting this data? So using like the data quality applications or apps within the DHIS2, we are able to analyze and really zoom into those facilities that are creating these outliers and also giving them like timely feedback on this data, giving them the opportunity to maybe rectify these issues. But also these innovations or these data quality applications allow us now to kind of like target our support, identify facilities that are doing badly, that are reporting not so good quality data, and seeing how we can easily support or target our interventions there. So I would say it also takes, as part of that, or to support some of these applications, you need to institute kind of like routines, that are looking at this data more frequently. So if you're having like your annual school census, you're collecting your data maybe once a year or 3 times a year, can you establish routines where you review this data before you actually use it for reporting or for decision making? Then the more you review it, the more it's very easy to to improve it. So I would say, yeah, it takes a whole process. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Monica. I think what I heard is there's technology to support, but there are also processes that you can put in place to help you filter through to understand what data you're seeing. I also heard something about positionality. So when you have an entry point into the system, it gives you another layer of perspective, so that you can sort of see where the data doesn't seem right, so you can ask additional questions to get closer to what you're observing and how accurate that is. So thank you so much for giving that response, Monica. So I'm going to try to make sure we keep to time. I want to thank all our panelists, all our speakers, those who are here and those who had to drop off earlier, for the rich reflections and for the way you've engaged with us today. I want to thank our participants as well, because the questions that they raised they point to a collective momentum across the continent to strengthen data education systems. So before closing, I would like to quickly share with you some of the ways that you can continue to engage with these initiatives. So we have been dropping in the chat links to the different programs. And I will also provide one additional link, which is okay. Okay, so the link that I am just about to drop is an introduction to the community of learning for the Unlocking Data Initiative. So I can see a lot of our members are currently in the session. So thank you for being here. And the link that I'm about to drop will serve as a central platform for ongoing knowledge sharing and engagement across the initiative. So by joining the community of learning, you'll be able to receive updates on our events, on our publications, and opportunities for further engagement. We're working on developing thematic groups to address some of the issues that we've discussed here today. And we hope to continue having the conversation and engaging. I think, as has been said by many of our panelists, beyond project life cycles. Okay, so I will now, actually, I'm having some trouble finding the, okay, yes, here it is. Okay, so the link is in the chat now, and I will now close the session and thank everyone for participating. Heartfelt thanks to our panelists, to our country partners, to our project teams, and of course to everyone who's joined us today. Your engagement really demonstrates the power and the potential of collaboration across borders and institutions and even sectors. So before you leave, we're going to share with you a post-webinar survey, and it would help us to improve and align our future sessions with your needs. So if you could please respond to the questions using the link that will be dropped in the chat. And we will also be going through some of the questions that we were not able to answer in the session today. We will respond by email and with our other social engagement platforms. So please keep an eye out for those. And thank you once again for being part of this learning exchange. And we look forward to continued collaboration. Wishing you a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, thank you, Nafisa. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.